Profits are up as the Street Profits become the number one contender for the tag team championships. Can they beat the Bloodline? Or better yet, this is gonna be Bloodline. We're gonna talk about it in just a second. Stay tuned. This is WrstlXtra.
Yo, this is WrstlXtra. I'm your boy, A Dazzle, the Black Wrestling Advocate, always joined by my trios team, the Real House of Black, Mex, the WrestleManiac, if you will, yeet. And of course, the omnipresent man, say his name, he will appear, Gerard Bonner. The Profits are up and they want the smoke from the Bloodline. Montez Ford and Angelo Dawkins, of course, defeated DIY on SmackDown last week, Friday, and imminent to face the Bloodline for the Tag Team Championships. The question is, will they beat the Bloodline? Mex, I'll give this one to you. Ever the man to never hold back. What are your thoughts on the potential of the Street Profits defeating the Bloodline?
I feel like obviously a couple of weeks ago, the Bloodline were shocked to the tag team titles, even at the detriment of DIY, who had recently just picked them up. And here we are, Street Profits looking good through this little tournament thing they've done. Bobby Lashley, who was by their side, seemingly gone. And everything seems to be going well for the Street Profits. It's almost like WWE won.
Uh-oh.
I think we lost him a little bit.
Yeah. That was going to be good, too. I could feel it.
I know.
I know. Feel it.
Did it come?
Okay, I think he's back.
Go again.
Are you back?
Go again.
Yeah, I'll just get through this. So, yeah, I just think maybe they want to prove a point. With Bobby Lashley now leaving the company or whatever, that's one thing. The other main thing I think that could help Street Profits in their quest for this gold is Roman Reigns. If Roman Reigns, who I believe is going to be on the show, comes back to scatter the Bloodline and their attempts to retain the title, that could work in their favor as well. So I am quietly optimistic about what we may get on SmackDown this weekend.
Interesting. Imagine the Profits win. We'll be in this space where two teams in a row, I believe, wouldn't have defended, upon winning, wouldn't have defended the tag team titles. Gerard, does that pose as an issue, seeing as, for a few weeks, there's been ramblings on the internet about, tag team divisions on a number of products and wrestling brands not being looked after, people not necessarily really caring. It feels as though, tag team wrestling is just, an afterthought. Do you feel that if the Profits were to win in this match, that could probably enhance that feeling?
No, I think it's the complete opposite of that feeling. When you look at tag teams, one of the things that people talk about a lot is that, two random singles wrestlers are just thrown together and they become a tag team. Honestly, that's the case with Jacob Fatu and Tama Tonga, who, to my knowledge, had never really teamed up before. Of course, Tonga Loa gets injured. These two all of a sudden now team up and they become the tag team champions. So having a team like the Street Profits, who have been a solidified team for years, win the tag team titles, I don't think that's any detriment to the tag titles at all. In fact, it returns the tag titles to an actual tag team. And in terms of whether or not there's a lot of care being made to tag team wrestling, I think this week we've seen some of the best tag team wrestling we've seen in a given week in a very long time. at both AEW and WWE. I mean, we really saw some great matches, and for the Street Profits to defeat DIY in the way that they did, in the banger of a match that they had, it puts them in a really good space. And to Mex's point, when the Bloodline won the titles all of 3-4 weeks ago, they certainly seemed super strong. But Roman Reigns is back, and they did get one up on him Friday, but it took a lot of work, an awful lot of work. So Roman Reigns could come back, to Mex's point, and help the Street Profits become tag team champions, taking all titles out of the Bloodline conversation, which now means we can fully focus on this Bloodline feud without worry about championships or things of that nature, which I think they don't need titles for this feud to really matter.
So then the question is, what was the point in them winning? Why not have it on another established team in DIY, keep them going, and then the Profits, then face them, have a feud, whatever it is, and we have that. What was the point if the Profits do win? What would then be the point of the Bloodline having the titles in the first place?
Well, I think the point of it was, firstly, to make Solo Sikoa look very strong going into SummerSlam. That weekend was really supposed to be the Bloodline taking over. So they won the tag titles. Many would argue that perhaps he was going to win the WWE Championship. Roman Reigns comes and messes all of that up. So I think this is one of those cases where the championships become, I don't want to say ancillary, but they become secondary in comparison to the larger story that's happening. And I think that's okay, as opposed to being an afterthought. It's okay to be secondary when there's a larger storyline at play, as opposed to, oh, we haven't done anything with these tag team titles, so let's just put them on somebody. Now, with that said, and we aren't talking about AEW yet, but I think that's one of the differences with what we've seen in regards to the tag team championships in both organizations. In the WWE, they've been defended regularly. They've been a focal point. In AEW, we just saw the first tag title defenses in 4 months. So I think that's a picture of, again, the tag titles being ancillary versus being secondary. And I think in this particular case, when we're looking at the Bloodline, the reason that they won the titles had more to do with the larger Bloodline story than it did kind of hot potatoing the tag title.
True. Mex made the point of course, Bobby Lashley, MVP, now officially left WWE. And this possibly being some type of point being made with the Profits. The Profits have, as much as we have said on this show countless times for over a year, with the pride and not knowing what the Profits were doing and what the whole faction was about and all the rest of it, the Profits have stayed within the higher echelon of the tag team division, always kind of in there when it came to the gauntlet matches, the tournaments, all the rest of it. At this very moment in time, they definitely feel a lot more relevant. What's actually different though? What actually, apart from the obvious, Bobby Lashley's not there, but what has changed? What has made it feel as though the Profits are back in a sense?
I think it's one of them things, where it's like, if all fails, let's just return to plan A, which is wrestle a good match. And at least in this little tournament, they've had maybe 2 challengers, 2 other teams they've come up against before they've got to this point. And it just reminds people how exciting they are, how good they are in the ring and stuff. Like, everything else they're doing backstage in the midst of getting to this point is just kind of rah-rah speeches, bravado, we can do it, let's get there, blah, blah, blah. Like, this is stuff that's in their wheelhouse, but they haven't been given the opportunity. Wrestling matches, they haven't really been given the opportunity, it was Bloodline, it was DIY and other teams and stuff like that, Theory and Waller. So, now they're just being given opportunity, really, and, they're just shining as they would, sort of thing. And it's I guess it's a thing as well where, you know, absence makes the heart grow fonder. You haven't seen them for a minute, so it's like, wow, they're putting energy. And apart from all of that, they actually wrestled a terrific match against DIY on Friday night. It was a very, very good match. So it just shows the wealth of talent, the abundance they have, and they're not really using or finding the spot for. I even feel like B-Fab now fits within them. Like I never really I never had an opinion on her addition before when Bobby Lashley was there and stuff like that. I just thought, okay, this is like a spare black person backstage. Let's put her with the rest of them. Sort of.
Wow.
It sounds bad, but like obviously they disbanded what her and Asante were doing. At least she got to TV. See what I mean? But I feel like I say now, it feels like it's all together. I don't know what it is. Maybe their attire is meshing or whatever the case is. Like it just feels like it makes sense now. So yeah, I think there's a lot of things have worked in their way. Having said that, it almost feels like if they don't win on the weekend now, it's like, where do they go from here? But yeah, I think it's just the energy's high, you know, like it's one of them ones.
I think you're correct. Go on.
I want to ask a question to Max. So with stray blacks just randomly out here, with B-Fab suddenly now feeling like a good fit with the Street Profits, do you think it's because we've seen her quite a bit and we're used to that now? Do you think that there's something that she adds to it? Or is this yet another result of the absence of Bobby Lashley?
I was going to say, I think it's probably the Bobby Lashley thing, where Bobby Lashley was, I guess, not the manager, but speaking on behalf of the group. Not that it's necessarily her role to speak on behalf of the group, but she has been given a few more lines here and there. So, I just feel like maybe now within herself as well, she feels, well, I'm not just an ornament to this group sort of thing. With Bobby Lashley gone, I am, I guess, the quote-unquote valet manager, whatever the case is. And she feels like she has a role to play and she's playing it.
So are you saying, I'm sorry, but so are you saying then that there are benefits to Bobby Lashley no longer being in the WWE? I mean, the Street Profits now get a title shot. You now see B-Fab as part of this.
Let me jump in here. I feel as though it's
please do, because this guy wants to get me arrested today.
I've been watching too much Scandal. Sorry.
It's not. I don't think it's a case of WWE being better without Bobby Lashley. It's just that group being better without Bobby Lashley. I was going to say that, you know, for me, you know, with the Street Profits feeling the way that they feel now and kind of back really on top and being able to show who they are, it's kind of going back to, you know, it wasn't broken, so why were we trying to fix it in the first place? And as excited as we got when we first saw the Profits link up with Lashley, we very quickly realized it wasn't helping anyone. And that there was actually no real need for things to change for the Street Profits. If done well, it could have added to them. It could have, and we had the high hopes that it would. But at the same time, it wasn't like how we used to discuss the New Day probably 6 months ago, where we were like, wow, they need something, they need this, they need that, they need blah, blah, blah. It was just, okay, they're not doing much. And it wasn't a case of they needed to change something. It was just, okay, can we just put them back where they were? And I think that's just literally where they are now. And I think with B-Fab, as Mick said, now with one person gone, and I don't think it even mattered who that person was, but because Bobby Lashley was the focal point of the group, now with him gone, she kind of had to step up, had to kind of say more, had to do a bit more. And it's worked out for her in that respect. So it's definitely not a case of the WWE is not better without Bobby Lashley. But those three definitely are. In the sense of, you know, what they now get to do, you know, who our eyes are fixed on and what we're kind of focusing on when it comes to now just the three of them, as opposed to the four with, you know, the main man being a former 2-time world champion. Of course, all our eyes are going to be on him and not everyone else. So now it's up to them to do their thing. And if it's sink or swim, I guess. But the scary part is what does happen if they lose. What
It's a great question.
I don't know. It's a funny one, because Bloodline will stay as the tag team champions, and those belts will probably just, I'd say, kind of get forgotten. It's like how Liv Morgan, women's world champion, but we ain't really doing much because she's in bro. As a champion, not much is happening. So.
Yeah, and you know what? The scary thing with that championship is that the same thing happened with Rhea as well. So we're kind of going through a very similar cycle with Liv, and just the two of them kind of, you know, battling it out. And
Rhea's title run, in 2023, Rhea's title run picked up around like now. She started at least getting challenges. Still people we didn't believe she'd lose to, but she started getting challenges about now.
Right.
Yeah. Her first like 6 months with the title after Mania as well was just a bit. It was so much in the story and getting that person over, as opposed to being a champion of this title and this division and stuff.
Going back to Lashley and MVP, as I said, you know, we know that they're now officially gone from the WWE. Their profiles not only, you know, taken away from the internal roster, but now the public roster in terms of on the website. They've gone from the active roster to the alumni, which is every indication that they are gone. Talk of, you know, a Hurt Business reunion is high, with Shelton Benjamin, of course, also already a free agent. I've not seen a lot, and I don't know the ins and outs. I haven't really caught a lot of AEW over the last week, but I've seen that there's going to be a fatal 4-way trios match, a London ladder match. Let's just call it a ladder match. It's happening in London, so I get it. But there's an open space for another trios team. Mex, you know a little bit more than me in terms of what's been happening in AEW very recently. How possible is it that we could see a surprise of the Hurt Business filling that 4th spot, or is there just someone else or another team in AEW that are more than likely going to fill that spot?
I would have said it is 100% them if that team was like, you know, going to join us at All In. We're going to find out at All In who this third team is going to be, 4th team is going to be. The fact that I think there's going to be a qualifier match on Collision in Cardiff or something like that, I doubt they're going to show up there. So I think what we're probably going to get is a Death Triangle last hurrah with Pac and the Lucha Bros before those guys probably leave the company. Apparently they've been being pitched a lot of stuff, the Lucha Bros, and just poo-pooing it and saying nah, because they don't want to drop their value. They don't want to be losing on the way out. So yeah, maybe you give them this. They love a ladder match, you know, it's culturally their thing. So like this could be a nice little goodbye to them. However, in the last week, MVP has trademarked the Hurt Syndicate. I don't know if you guys saw this.
I did not see that.
Yeah,
that one.
The Hurt Syndicate has been trademarked. So there's possibly something somewhere coming. But yeah, I don't think this is the spot, although it would have been a brilliant spot if all three of them walked out at Wembley for this. But yeah.
That would have been phenomenal. So we're expecting to see the Hurt Syndicate turn up somewhere, sometime very, very soon. In terms of All In, again, you know, we've got this casino match happening as well. All sorts of surprises and twists and turns happen in these types of matches. How possible are we expecting to see? Are we expecting to see maybe Lashley, Ricochet? Of course, we spoke about Michael Oku as well. How possible is it to see one, if not all three, of those guys turn up in that match?
I think it's possible. I will admit that it took me a good second this week as there was a match for the #1 spot in the Casino Gauntlet match. And I'm going, why are we fighting for the #1 spot in a gauntlet match? Like, the idea is to come last, not first. It took me the longest time and they finally had to explain, oh, well, the idea in the Casino Gauntlet match is the first person to get a win wins the whole thing. And I'm like, oh, that's why we're fighting. It was so confusing. So with that said, it does make me wonder how long into it we would get, A, before we get a winner, and B, would that be the right spot for a Ricochet or a Lashley to show up if they could be, in theory, pegged to show up and then somebody wins and they never come out. So it's kind of wild to me to see how that could work. So I don't know. I think the structure of that Casino Gauntlet match is what's concerning to me. If it were almost like the ladder match they had where you had to pull down the Sonic ring, that one I think would be a good place for either of them to show up because they end up being the mystery person and there's a lot that you can do with that. But relative to that, the Casino Gauntlet, once the rules were explained, I was like, nah. I mean, granted, Will Ospreay won't be in it, so it won't end after like the third person. But whoever else is in there, I don't know.
I mean, we saw in the last match that they did, I think it was again with Will Ospreay, at least 8 to 9 people were in that match or ended up in that match before we saw a winner. So the possibility is there, and I think more than likely that's what we'll kind of get. But yeah, it definitely would have been better if it was. I mean, all these matches kind of sound similar. Casino, and then there's the I can't remember what the other one is, where they kind of all come out as like different cards, like 5.
Now it's weird. Now that's the Casino Battle Royal. And that's what makes sense. Like the Casino Battle Royal, you have to wait for everybody to get in, and you got different suits. So again, perhaps they need to do a better job of differentiating between the two, because the Casino Battle Royal goes one way, the Casino Gauntlet match goes a completely different way, and it's very confusing.
Yeah.
So why are we doing anything? Yeah, go ahead.
I was saying, if you guys remember, they've done this Casino Gauntlet, I think, twice already. One of them was the one that Will Ospreay won the week after.
He won both of them. He won.
The week. Yeah. So, I think it's an okay spot to debut certain guys. Like I think a Ricochet could come out here, put on a good showing. Next people keep coming in. He doesn't have to get pinned if they don't want him to win, if you see what I mean.
Right.
They can pin someone else because he's basically the first person that gets pinned has cost everyone else the match, basically. If Bobby Lashley comes out here, he's kind of expect someone of his ilk to win.
Right.
So if he's not gonna win, then you probably just leave it alone and don't do it for Bobby Lashley's sake. But like a Ricochet, a Michael Oku, this could be like a nice spot for them, I reckon.
Yeah, true. I don't feel as though I was going to ask the question when you mentioned Ricochet. I was going to ask the question: would that feel as though it's not a big enough introduction for a Ricochet? But it's Ricochet we're talking about. Like obviously, in terms of his run in WWE, he kind of lost maybe a bit of his not spark, but I don't know what the word is, but. He wasn't as phenomenal or this, top of the card guy anymore. So if he came in that respect, then I guess it wouldn't be a bad thing. We can't expect AEW to just shoot him to the top.
Oh yes, we can.
While it could work, don't be surprised if it doesn't happen like that. That's what I mean. Yeah, Gerard, go on.
Yeah, it's tricky. It's really tricky because it seems like the obvious match they would go for would be him and Ospreay. I mean, that just seems like the obvious. In terms of what his career would look like, I think for someone like him, they would almost want to prove, hey, we can show you what we can do at Ricochet since you guys didn't handle him well. And they've got enough titles to potentially do that with. I think they have to be careful, though, because they have enough people fighting for these titles that you don't want it to be a space where, you know, you automatically shoot somebody to the top, even if they are deserving of it. So I don't know. It's going to be what you know, one of the crazy things is he could debut it All Out, which, you know, might be the better move since, you know, it seems like All In is already pretty congested. So perhaps he shows up as a surprise for All Out, which, you know, All Out has been a place where they have debuted a number of stars, you know, from Adam Cole to Bryan Danielson, Ruby Soho. Like a lot of people make that move at All Out. It'd be a move that makes sense for him, I think.
Interesting.
I'll stick by, and it sounds controversial, maybe tongue in cheek, maybe it is, who knows. I don't think Ricochet's gone to AEW to be a top guy. I think he's gone there to just have matches. I can't see how you can see that landscape, see the congestion around there, and feel that you're going to kind of displace the plan of who's going to be champion next and stuff. He can go there and become American champion, international champion, whatever they call it. He can go there and become continental champion, which might be good enough accolades for him, but it's not really a step up from where you were in WWE. So, yeah, I don't think he's gone there to be a world champion. And yeah, on the All Out thing, yeah, I think if Ospreay wins it back at Wembley, maybe he comes out at All Out. Maybe he comes out the Dynamite after All In to say, me, you, Ospreay at All Out in front of that. Is that in Chicago?
It is in Chicago, yeah.
Yeah, maybe they give that rabid Chicago crowd that kind of match as his first match, maybe.
Very true, very true. So we're talking about All In. It's happening this weekend on Sunday. The interesting thing that I've noticed, and I didn't think I was going to say my lifetime, that's probably a bit of an exaggeration, but in the 5 years that AEW has been around and the kind of conversations that we've had surrounding AEW's use of black talent in the past and stuff and stuff of that nature, it is very, very interesting to see the amount of black talent that is involved in the matches. We've seen the likes of obviously Swerve being the AEW champion. You know, we see the Acclaimed are involved. We see that Willow Nightingale's got a match. We've seen, you know, there's a few others in there as well. Of course, Mercedes Moné defending her TBS title against Britt Baker. We look at Bash at Berlin, WWE. We look at the last pay-per-view was what? SummerSlam? And there were none African Americans, black talent on the SummerSlam card. There seems to be at this moment none at Bash at Berlin, but yet in AEW there's a hell of a lot. What has changed? Is this a cause for concern, or would it be kind of making too much of something?
I think it's like peaks and troughs. I think, you know, there was a time, maybe early AEW pandemic times, where we were like, wow, look at all the black talent in WWE doing their thing, shining, taking opportunities. And we were asking ourselves, who's going to be the first black world champion in AEW, looking at Scorpio Sky and Will Hobbs and people like that. You see what I mean? And I think it's just, you know, it's their turn. It's their turn. The black talent are very much still on TV in WWE, but you know, I guess they're not involved in anything consequential right now to get them to pay-per-views. Whereas, you know, AEW, not only are the black talents making the pay-per-views, and as well, we have to obviously mention, and it's not an excuse, but it is what it is. AEW pay-per-views are like 13 to 15 matches. So if you're having that many matches and you can't find somewhere to put a black person, that's probably a bigger problem.
You're right. You are right.
Very true.
But I think what's very impressive, which we'll get on to talk about, was, you know, now it's the stock they hold in the company. We were saying not too long ago where, right, we've got a champion in Mercedes Moné, a champion in Swerve, Athena on the run that she's on. You know, they've had this massive announcement with Arlington, Texas, or where they're going to host All In next year. And our people are like the poster men and women for that, which I think is amazing. That's beyond, you know, just holding a championship. That's beyond just a match on the pay-per-view. So those are the kind of spots we want to occupy, and they've done very well, those particular talent, to get there, show their worth there as well. And the company are confident to put them front and center on this kind of venture, which is great.
Yeah. You know, there are a few different talents that were involved in all of that, but the ones holding the titles, the ones that were center of attention, of course, was your AEW champion Swerve, Mercedes Moné as a TBS champion, and obviously holding the New Japan Strong Women's Championship. But of course, the homegrown Texas born and bred Athena was also there alongside them. Gerard, just how important was that in terms of a visual? And as Mick said, you know, it shows the importance of them in the company at the moment. How much and how far can this this go with all in Texas being next year? Do we see Athena holding that title all the way until then?
You know, to your first question, I think it's very important. Number one, that African-American talent is getting these opportunities in AEW. I think, you know, we remember during the pandemic era when, you know, Clubhouse was a thing and everybody, you know, had a lot to say, you know, asking, where's the black talent on AEW? Where are they? Where are they? You know, here we are. And I'm not sure that people are screaming as loudly when they were asking, where are they? As they are, as we say now, here they are.
Here they are.
You know, so for them to be positioned for such a major announcement, think about this. This is the largest show that AEW will do in the States. Largest show ever. You know, so they had gone obviously the London route, which when you go international, we've seen what international crowds will do regardless of the company. But to really take that task and that challenge in the United States is a very, very big deal. And front and center was your African-American talent. Now, you know, you could ask the questions, will they be champions, all three of them, come this time next year? Probably not, just because of the way that the cycle goes. You know, and the way that the wrestling fans tend to, you know, not be happy about title reigns that are running that long. Though for Athena, I don't know who's going to take the Ring of Honor World Championship from her. The bigger question could be, could she be in a space, you know, to possibly be looking at the AEW Women's World Championship a year from now in July of next year? Where will Mercedes be in all of this? Where will Willow be in all of this? Where does Swerve play? I think of all of the champions that are currently there, Swerve might have the best chance of being the world champion, you know, when we go into All In next year, simply because, you know, Bryan Danielson will likely win that championship this weekend. Swerve will probably regain it before then and get a chance to headline the stadium show. You know, lots of questions about, you know, where everybody else will fit into all of that. But I do think that based on what we've been seeing, you know, our black wrestlers there have been demonstrating that not only can they be great champions, but they can be involved in great stories. And so, you know, all of those things are going to really work, I think, to their advantage come All In. The key, I think, for AEW is they're going to have to give the show of shows to fill up Globe Life. And we'll get into kind of the differences between Globe Life and Wembley. But they're going to have to do that to be able to create the kind of buzz needed in the US for that. You know, in London, it was, hey, they've never been here before. It's our first time. So everybody's going to flood to that. Here in the US, where, you know, March was the last time they had a, you know, a 5-figure venue in terms of attendance, you know, where they did like 16,000 for Sting's retirement. Since then, they've not come anywhere close to 10,000 people in an arena setting. So to now go to a stadium that seats 40 to 45,000, they're going to have to give us a pretty amazing card. And honestly, to do that, you're going to need your black talent.
You know, it now feels as though, and I don't think this was the case when All In Wembley was first announced last year. It now feels as though All In is now like the AEW WrestleMania. You know, and with this one, it doesn't feel as though, you know, we're getting that kind of buzz or build up in-house, at least anyway. Again, you know, they're kind of running off the back of the success of last year, the fact that it's outside of the States. Just what more needs to happen, you know, in order for that stadium to be filled, you know, come All in Texas?
I think for Texas, they need to just do what they're doing in terms of like concentrating on the wrestling, but weave some stories, like some really solid stories. And I'm not saying for anyone jumps on this that AEW don't do stories, but it's not their focus sort of thing. But when you need to sell people on, you know, getting into a stadium, like you said, 40, 45, 50,000 people, like there needs to be a lot there to watch. It needs to be like a variety show, almost like WrestleMania is. Like you can have your matches that are just straight bangers, you know, an Osprey and Ricochet, which is just needs very little story. Let those men go and do what they do best. But you need something that's like story driven and something that people want to see climax and culminate at the stadium show sort of thing. So yeah, I think that's probably where I think they've probably lost out on that a bit this year, and that's what they need to improve on next year. Like as much as people want to see, like now, Danielson win the title and Danielson a swerve, it's a nice feel-good moment and stuff like that. The story, I'm still right now. The story is still Hangman and Swerve. Like if you on Dynamite on tomorrow and tell me they're switching it and doing Hangman and Swerve, I'm probably going to be more excited than, you know, Danielson and Swerve. So it's like, yeah, just be thorough, tell these stories, because you're gonna have to appeal to a lot more people. And you want to kind of put your flag in that area. I didn't think it helped where I saw Mercedes. I don't know whether this was on like her YouTube channel or like on Instagram, I can't remember, but she was at her hotel window and she opened the window and was like, "Oh, my first WrestleMania was at that building, the AT&T Stadium, which done like one of the biggest attendances, if you remember, WrestleMania 32.
102.
And I'm just thinking, you came here to promote you guys thing. And she said that, yeah, now she's going to be, you know, in this stadium, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just thinking, you're fighting, you're already here fighting your past, sort of thing. Like, you see what I mean? So they're going to have to put on something really good so that, you know, it doesn't just get, they've done Texas and then they're going around. Because right now, I think a lot of people here are saying, well, they've probably lost Wembley to WWE next year. They're doing a runner. You know, there's a lot of kind of tongue-in-cheek comments as well, sort of thing. So, yeah, I think they just need to really plant their foot in this one. It's on home turf in the US, so I don't think they can afford to muck it up at all.
Let me add something to that and say, number one, I think it's very interesting you mentioned Mercedes and her comments about WrestleMania and the comparison. I don't know how controversial this is going to be, but I really think AEW would do a good job to study WrestleMania 40. Like, study WrestleMania 40. Study the lead up to WrestleMania 40. Study all of the elements of the story, because here's the deal. If you're trying to do a stadium in the United States, and anywhere, quite frankly, but especially in the United States, you've got to tell great stories. The people came to WrestleMania because they wanted to see Cody finish the story. They came to WrestleMania because they wanted to see The Rock and Roman Reigns in a tag team match and how all of this would line up. And there were multiple things that drew people to Philly over a 2-day period. What's also interesting is the timing with which WWE executed all things WrestleMania. I mean, from Royal Rumble to, oh, snap, Cody's giving up his shot to The Rock, to, oh, snap, there's the slap heard around the world and the Cody crybabies and all of the things. Some would say they got lucky. Some may say they planned it all out. But whatever they did, they were able to make the adjustments that were necessary to give the right element of the story at the right time. For instance, to me, the biggest story leading into All In was Mariah May and Toni Storm, and it peaked too soon. They should not have had that turn happen right after she won the Owen Cup. They should have saved that probably until last week, so that you would have had, oh my God, this week, what will they say? What will they do? And then we go into All In. They have not figured out how to do certain things at the right time. So the last 4 weeks of Mariah May and Toni Storm have been lame duck, because it's like you can't do anything that topped what you did, leaving her a bloody mess. You know, we tried to get these random films and these random fights, and none of it is hitting the same. You know, they peaked. So they've tried to elongate the time that they tell stories, but they haven't figured out when to tell what pieces at what time. And so because of that, you either don't peak or you peak too soon, to where now we're like, okay, all right, it's All In. Y'all have been pushing All In all year, you know, and we're no more excited now. We were more excited 4 weeks ago, you know? So I think they really need to, for all that they want to do and talking about, you know, we're better than WWE. No. Sit down, study. WWE was kind enough to even put behind the scenes out there for the whole world to access. Go watch it, study it, and figure out, how do we take this and apply? I mean, WWE was so nice. Like, they didn't have to put that out there, you know, and you could say it's for the fans, but it's literally like AEW. Here's what you do. You want to do a stadium show? Here's what you do. You want to get people excited? Here's what you do. I think they've got to get past their pride and legitimately sit their people down, study the road to WrestleMania 40. Because taking on, and I think Wembley taught them, taking on a stadium show is no joke. And, you know, yeah, there's the allure of first time ever, but first time ever is not enough to make it second time and third time and fourth time. And I would argue that their reason for not going to Wembley next year has nothing to do with the WWE. I think it has everything to do with how this year is not as successful as last year. And that's why, if you look at the stadium they went to a stadium for 2025 that literally seats less than half of what Wembley does. So it's like, okay, it can't be, because if y'all were that big and bad, you're going to be in Dallas, go to AT&T Stadium, do 100,000, but you're not doing that. And I'm not mad at them for that. I think there's wisdom in that. But I think now that you've locked this in, you don't want to have 20,000 people show up at that stadium, because 20,000 people showing up when you can seat 40 to 50, not a good look. Not a good look. So I think they've got to figure out how you tell these stories, when to pull the point, when to pull the trigger, so that people go, yeah, I got to be there for that.
Yeah, I find it interesting that, you know, we talk about going to the same place, you know, 2 years in a row. And it's interesting that WWE have made that announcement that they're going to be in Indianapolis, like about, for 3 different shows, the 3 biggest shows as well. It's going to be very interesting to see how they navigate that, because, in a way, you're isolating a hell of a lot of people. People are going to travel, of course. There's going to be more than enough people that will travel, but you're isolating a lot of people. And then almost at the same time as well, it's going to be a struggle to expect the locals to come to every single show. You know what I mean? It's not cheap. It's not easy. And there may be something in that in a positive sense, but then there's still the negative of it as well. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how WWE kind of navigate that as well. Does it start next year, or is it 2026?
It's 2025 with Royal Rumble. But then they have not announced when the SummerSlam and the WrestleMania will be. So I'm thinking that's going to still be a few years out. Yeah. So it definitely won't be like we're going to do all 3 of them in 2025 or 2026.
Right.
They're going to space that out.
For real. So, but it's going to be very, very interesting just to see how all of that kind of pans out. Just to stick with All In, just this last point as well. In terms of everyone involved, let's throw out the predictions. We've kind of done it throughout the weeks already. We see Swerve versus Danielson. We've got Mercedes defending her championship. Do both walk out holding their championships?
I think Mercedes will.
Okay.
I think Mercedes retains. I think Swerve is he's a goner. It might not be at his hands. I think Hangman possibly gets involved. But with just how they've been telling the Danielson story, the tribute that they put on Dynamite last week, I thought, this is all a bit too much.
Yeah.
It's doing a bit too much now. So I'll actually be very shocked if Swerve retains, like Cody, Roman, WrestleMania 39 levels shocked. If Swerve retains at this point.
Yeah.
But I'm happy to see Danielson pick up that title.
Yeah, for sure. I think we're going to get great matches at All In. I think there's going to be a few surprises. It is, as Gerard was saying, it is a shame that quite a lot of these stories have kind of peaked too early. Maybe they could have held out maybe a week or 2 with Danielson, kind of declaring his career versus championship match. Again, as you've already mentioned, with Mariah May and Toni Storm. Somehow the Mercedes one still feels it's been in the same place, but not peaked.
But that's also because of that 2 to 3 week suspension that happened. That just worked really, really well because we didn't see Britt Baker on our TV.
And again, it was definitely down to that. So the build-up hasn't been the greatest, but I still think there's going to be a show to be had at Wembley. But the build-up hasn't had a lot of people invested. The ticket sales have kind of reflected that as well. So it's going to be interesting to see how that all plays out.
Just to add to that, obviously there's a gauntlet match, and we do not know who is part of that gauntlet match apart from the number 1 person, who is Orange Cassidy. Isn't it mad though that you have under contract Moxley, Hangman Adam Page, and Okada, and none of them are announced formally for this show? None of them have like a singles match as of today, right now. Isn't that wild?
It is wild. It is wild. And that you would put Okada and Claudio on Dynamite
in front of 3,000 people, respectfully, in Cardiff, when you could have just slapped it on a pay-per-view that you're having at the weekend.
These are the things that I'm talking about. Like, why is it culminating into this at this point when your big stadium show that you want to get, more people at is 5 days later? Like, it doesn't. Yeah.
Like, they clearly were banking on Kenny Omega to come back and they do Omega versus Okada. But I'm sure it's not like Omega told them on the weekend, yeah, guys, I don't think I'm gonna make it, they would have seen
Right.
this coming for a while now,
Right, of
and
course,
surely would have
of
had
course.
time to pivot. Like, they might still show up somewhere in terms of the gauntlet. That's really the only place they can show up at this point, unless they're gonna add matches, which they probably are because it's AEW. I think we're up to like
14 matches.
Yeah, I think we're up to like 9 or 10
Mhm.
right now. So there's still another 4 matches to come.
And some of those are already in the pre-show. So
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. We'll see.
I think the only saving grace is the possibility of that gauntlet match just being stacked. That's possibly the only other way it can work out. But even then, it kind of would feel, oh, I don't want to say it like this. Oh God, this sounds so bad. It would kind of almost feel Andre the Giant Battle Royal-ish. In terms of just throwing names on the show. You know what I mean? In that respect. But yeah, crazy stuff. Moving away from AEW, let's turn our attention.
Go. I have something to get off my chest just before we move away from AEW. But this is their misunderstood younger brother, Ring of Honor, right? I'm not buying any reason anyone gives me as to why Dustin Rhodes is the tag team champion with Sammy Guevara. Now, people
holding the 6-man tag titles
as well. Like, I people have been telling me, like, okay, they're getting Sammy Guevara over. It's to help Sammy Guevara face. Dustin's the guy to do that. Okay, if that's what, but like, how is Sammy Guevara a cat that has 9 lives? Like, I'm beginning to put it this way, and I'll just end here because I can go on and on about this. If I'm Private Party, if I am Top Flight, I am handing my resignation and I'm leaving.
Let me go one better. If I'm the infantry,
I will be leaving this company.
Who just had a tag title shot like 2 weeks ago and should have won the titles. They should have won the titles back WrestleMania weekend.
Supercard of Honor.
Supercard of Honor. But now you take them here. And I'm just like, so they had to do all that to earn a tag title shot. And then you randomly give a tag title shot to someone who already has a title. And you give it to them on Collision, not on Ring of Honor. And they win?
I'm out of it.
What kind? And listen, nothing against Dustin Rhodes. I'm glad at this point in your career, you have a championship, let alone 2 championships. Like, super cool. But there's so much talent in Ring of Honor and in AEW that there's not a reason that anybody should be a double champion, let alone Dustin Rhodes. Like, I don't when you have established tag teams in both AEW and Ring of Honor who should, again, I say, the infantry should be tag team champions. And I'd be asking, what exactly are we doing? And none of them are going to be present at All In.
Even to move it away from our people, the Workhorsemen. Like, there are tag teams, and I just don't understand. But like I always say, I'm always looking at like the young talent that's still trying to cut their teeth in the business. Private Party, Top Flight have just got this new gimmick, which I don't know. I don't have time for right now. Like, you lot, just find your way to NXT. Yeah, like, do seriously. A Miro, don't play ball with them. Like, say no to all creative advances until your contract leaves, and because there is nothing right now to show that you are. Private Party beat the Young Bucks on day 1 of this company.
Correct.
Where are they? Like, what are they doing now? Like, I'm done, man. Move on.
It's scary. It's sad, and we can, there's a whole load. We were talking about, the lack of tag team wrestling and all the rest of it. But ROH right now has enough, or even with AEW, the ones that are not being used could be moved to ROH, if anything. You know what I mean? And we see as well, and I have to shout them out, and I'm glad there's a positive to throw in all of this. But MXM Collection, I'm sorry, they are doing
they're amazing.
Phenomenal work.
They're amazing.
Phenomenal work. I almost feel like that's the only thing I watch on the Ring of Honor, literally their promo.
They're great
right now. They're phenomenal. Phenomenal. Yeah, definitely. And so to see even them, as much as they only showed up like 2-3 weeks ago, even them not kind of being in that mix or not being considered to take the titles and all that kind of stuff is, yeah, it's a little, it's worrying. It's worrying, but it just enhances and exaggerates, you know, just the feeling that we feel in terms of how Ring of Honor has been treated, being used, being managed, being booked. Just every ounce of Ring of Honor is just, I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, it's a tough one. It's a very tough one. Let's move away very quickly, very quickly, and let's go back to the place where we all love to talk about.
Wait, one more thing. Sorry.
Oh
one
no!
more thing.
Oh no!
I just no. I
No.
just want to shout out Athena, who is over
Yes.
600 days as Ring of Honor Women's World Champion, and she is getting ever closer, less than 30 days away from being the longest reigning champion in Ring of Honor, male or female. And so it seems very clear that that's going to happen. Her next challenger is Abaddon, and no offense to Abaddon, but I mean, I definitely see, you know, Athena walking away still as champion whenever that happens. But that's where we are. And so we could be in a space in less than 30 days where an African-American woman is the longest reigning champion in the history of Ring of Honor.
Yeah, positive. For sure. And
we ended on a positive.
Massive. Hey.
There it is.
And in NXT,
yes.
we can talk about the longest reigning North American champion. That was Wesley, or is Wesley, former champion, of course. But he finds himself in the headlines of NXT over the last couple of weeks. Took out Joe Hendry in emphatic form. It was funny. And finds himself now in a triple threat match this tonight on NXT against Joe Hendry and Pete Dunne for the number one contendership to Ethan Page's NXT championship. Now, how possible do we see, or who do we think? Let me open it up and not be singular. Actually, who do we see winning this match and facing Ethan Page?
Who's it again? Hendry, Wesley,
and Pete Dunne.
Pete Dunne.
I think in terms of wrestling psychology, there's an obvious answer.
I think it's Joe Hendry.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I believe in Joe Hendry.
Yes.
I believe it has to be Joe Hendry. As I said, you know, in terms of kind of like the whole wrestling psychology, how we're used to seeing things, with Ethan Page being a heel, Wesley, Pete Dunne, kind of, you know, in that same space now. I believe it can only be Joe Hendry that comes away as a winner in that triple threat match to face Ethan Page. The outcome of that match all depends on when it happens, blah, 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 the rest of it.
No mercy.
It's no
September
mercy.
1st.
How close is that to that's about a month, about 4 weeks away from?
Yeah, 4 weeks away from the debut on CW.
Yeah. I kind of see Joe Hendry winning, becoming NXT champion.
Really?
I honestly do. Yeah,
wow.
I honestly do. And if it doesn't happen at No Mercy, it happens during those first 2 weeks of that CW switch. Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Wow.
Yeah, I think it has to be something as massive, as major as that. And as much as we haven't seen, we've got excited about the likes of Jordan Grace becoming NXT Women's Champion, that being a big thing, or possibly being a big thing. The possibility, you know, we thought about 2 weeks ago that MSK we're going to win the NXT Tag Team Championships and, you know, possibly take that to TNA every now and again. And we haven't seen those two things happen. It kind of gives you this sense of, you know, this whole champion on both brands probably not happening. But I think with everything that's kind of going on with the CW thing, I think for me, it's definitely a bigger missed opportunity than the other two have been, basically.
Okay.
It just makes
sense. Gerard, let me borrow your interrogation room. It doesn't step inside.
Yes,
I'm here.
So would you say that NXT got Trick Williams wrong, or he's not coming back round as we thought he would be to this point, winning the title again at this point at the launch of on the channel? Do you think he was a flash in the pan and that it's done for him now at this point?
No, actually, that's a very good question. But if things work out with that whole Trick Williams thing thrown in, there's the possibility that Joe Hendry becomes champion at No Mercy, and then Trick Williams manages to beat Pete Dunne and whoever else he needs to beat and win a #1 contendership, and it's Joe Hendry and Trick Williams on one of those first 2 weeks on the CW. I think that would work out for Trick. But at the same time, I don't know. This is maybe me personally. I don't know, or just where Trick is at the moment. But I don't know if NXT needs Trick Williams to be either champion or challenging the champion come those first 2 weeks. Maybe it's someone else. Maybe it is the #1 contendership that he has in those first 2 weeks, just to give us something else to look forward to, not give us everything in those first 2 weeks. We've still got something to look forward to, because then if Joe Hendry wins at No Mercy and then say Wes Lee beats him during those first 2 weeks, then we get the possibility of Wes Lee and Trick Williams further down the line. So it's open. It's open, but I do believe there has to be at some point within the next 2 months, Joe Hendry with that NXT Championship. I think it has to happen. It would be almost pointless to give him the amount of the contract they've given him, the airtime, all the rest of it, for that not to be a thing. And I don't think Ethan Page is a big enough star to walk into that CW or come out the end of the 2 weeks as the NXT champion.
You know, in my head, what I've had, and this could very much still happen, like you said, there could be another opportunity for Joe Hendry to win it. What I've very much had in my head is that if Joe Hendry does get there, and then him and Ethan Page at Say No Mercy, Josh Alexander, who has beef with Joe Hendry currently, can come and help his ex-partner Ethan Page to retain the title. Like I said, could still happen that way the first time round, and then they run it back and Joe Hendry wins. But yeah, I hadn't even thought about Joe Hendry actually winning at all. Well, it'll be good. It'll be definitely good for the partnership as an advert for the partnership. So yeah, possible.
Yeah. There's possibilities.
There are definitely possibilities. I'm thinking to myself, I mean, the No Mercy PLE is in Denver, and that is in an arena. We've yet to see an arena singing Joe Hendry's song. You know, so I'm just thinking of moments, right? You know, when we get to October, Allstate Arena, we know what the Allstate Arena can do. You know, we know some of the moments that have happened in there. I think that's going to be a big bang, maybe big enough to say Joe Hendry wins the title there, to have everybody singing, and then there's still a separate moment where they're whooping that Trick, right? So they're going to take full advantage of this, you know, Chicago and St. Louis moment on these first 2 weeks. Joe Hendry, I think, will become the NXT champion. I don't know if it happens at No Mercy, but I do think there needs to be moments big enough from a ratings perspective to get eyes tuned in on Tuesday nights on the CW. And the optics of a Joe Hendry as NXT champion night one, strange, and I didn't think I'd be saying this 6 months ago, is a bigger moment than Trick Williams winning the NXT championship on night one. It's a bigger moment. Yeah.
All day long.
Yeah.
Definitely. It also the question comes as well. Who is next for Obafemi. I'm gonna say this. I'm sorry, but as good as the match was, the whole thing with Otis for me was not pointless because it helps Otis, but yeah, it was a letdown. I believe Otis may now kind of be in the mix and kind of stay around, and we'll see him in NXT a little bit more. We kind of have seen him regularly enough over the last couple of months in NXT. But do we need to have, the question is actually, do we need to have the next challenger or someone to come out have to be from TNA in order for this to feel as though someone could possibly, or give us something to make us feel as though there's a real challenger for Obafemi?
I don't think the person has to be from TNA. It could be from someone within the company. It could be someone that's kind of dropping down to from the main roster down into NXT, if you like. I do think like wherein the Otis stuff was very disheartening. Mm-hmm. Like I can't lie, I just felt like we're past this. Mm-hmm. Like Otis isn't a threat, unfortunately. As big as he is, he's not a threat. Mm-hmm. He's not even like a real challenge at this point. They're better off having an ex-North American champion, someone they've heated up like Bronson Reed right now, coming in. Then you're like, okay, this guy might be a
That's literally what I was writing down.
Yeah, like wow. I think Otis was the wrong selection. It's almost like they had someone. It's like the person called in sick, and it's like, okay, who else can we get? It just, even the way they went about it, it just felt very like this wasn't who it was meant to be, sort of thing.
Right.
I think one thing I'll just kind of put out there is that we probably need a story somewhere within this run he's having, and not just open challenge, just keep fighting off people. We don't want this to look Jade Cargill TBS title-ish. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Where it's just defense after defense and squash match after squash. Like, give him a story with someone that, even it could be someone smaller than him, but someone with like some real technical prowess that will really give him something to think about or something. I don't know. Like the Wesley thing was there and was good, but he's got his own struggles. And, as we all knew, the Rascals thing was boiling. It was imminent that was going to happen anyway. Mm-hmm. We need someone that is going to have like a good war with him. Maybe even beat him and trade the title and Obafemi can win it back. But I just think, especially from a viewer standpoint, I want to see something a bit different now.
I think the answer to that, I've got an answer for that, but
go.
I think the answer, no, go ahead. I think the answer for that is Tavion Heights.
I was gonna say that, so it's fine.
Yeah, after all he has done in Japan, I mean, like, he's won over that Pro Wrestling Noah crowd. I mean, to see what Muda says about him and Marufuji says about him, there's no way Tavion Heights just comes back and is the same guy. There's no way. I think he becomes the star of the No Quarter Catch crew. I think they might even get jealous of him because he's a bigger star than Charlie Dempsey. I don't know if they try to kick him out, but to me, it's, hey, I conquered Japan. Now it's time to conquer North America. Obafemi. And to see those two go, we got a war. We got a war there, because if you think, I have to remember, I don't remember if they fought during the breakout tournament. I feel like they might have been semifinals, maybe in the breakout tournament.
Were they not the final? Were they not the final?
Were they the finals? Were they the finals?
I don't think Tavion made it to the finals. I don't think Tavion made it to the final.
Okay.
Tavion had one match and was out, if I remember correctly.
Was he? Because there was another guy. Let me see.
Who did Obafemi beat then?
I don't think it was Tavion Heights. I remember being annoyed that this guy went out. Let's see.
I'm gonna find out.
Okay,
I swear Oba beat him though. Whether it's not in the final.
Obafemi beat Dragon Lee. Femi defeated Dragon Lee to win the NXT North America. Oh, that's
North American title, right? But not the. All right, breakout tournament finals, 2024. Oh, it was Riley Osborne and Obafemi in the finals of the men's breakout tournament.
What about the semis?
Yeah, Obafemi beat Tavion Heights in the semis.
In the semis, yeah.
Okay.
So you got a story to run back right there.
Yeah.
You can revisit that, and you know, we see where Obafemi went literally like the next week, and he won the North American Championship versus a Tavion Heights, who, you know, took a little bit longer, but he had to go to Japan. He's done his thing over there. Now they're able. I think these two come back, and we get ourselves a feud for real, because the athleticism between those two is crazy. The story you get to tell is crazy. I think Tavion Heights should be the next guy, and you can take that feud to the CW.
Yeah. This guy.
True.
I think
True.
Yeah, okay.
But for me, I think it might take a bit of time. Obviously, you know, in between that time, for Tavion Heights to kind of insert himself in there, does there need to be someone else in between? Who is that someone else? Does it have to be, again, does it have to be someone from TNA?
Jay Malachi, what's his name again?
Oh yeah. Why did his name leave me that fast?
His name has left my head.
Javon Evans. Yes.
Javon Evans.
There it is. Like, I was a total blank.
Sorry, mate. That's our fault. Wow, all three of us forgot his name. That's crazy.
Yeah. We haven't seen him on TV lately.
Weeks,
yeah.
He's been doing all his vignettes and stuff, though, isn't it?
Yeah, he has been. That'd be fun, though. That'd be fun.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Just someone of that ilk that poses a different challenge to him. Someone he can go back and forth with a mic with. Both Tavion and Javon Evans have that element of being cheeky, and you know, they will provide something different for Obafemi. So yeah, it'll be good to kind of see him kind of sink his teeth into something like that.
The last thing I want to talk about really quickly, very, very quickly. Speaking of big men, of course, we see Odyssey Jones teaming with the New Day. We're seeing the controversial interactions with those guys. I thought, and I kind of almost was like, oh man, they had Kofi and Xavier had an interaction. Xavier kind of sided with it all and was like, okay, I get it. Fair enough. But then in the match, we saw a few things kind of happen. There was still Xavier Woods looking at this whole thing kind of like, are we still kind of gonna get this breakup that we're expecting? Or are we kind of just being fed red herrings this whole time? And the only thing is really just to get Odyssey Jones over in the end. And not necessarily a breakup.
I don't know what they're planning to do here, apart from I can't help but think, is this a way to bring Big E back to TV? And I don't know how we're necessarily going to connect the dots, go from A to B with that suggestion, but I can't see them breaking up. I don't see it happening at all. They might toe the line, and Xavier thinks about hitting him over the back with a chair when he's not looking. But I don't think we're getting a turn or anything like that. I just think this is somehow like gonna be a catalyst to bring Big E back. But yeah, I don't know how yet.
Yeah, I have to tell you that in watching Raw last night, I was sad because it was like all of the signs were pointing to this turn from Xavier Woods. And I was just thinking to myself, especially after Kofi's conversation, like, I don't know that I know we want something fresh for the New Day, But the idea of breaking up this crew that has weathered so much, and we know they're real life friends, and we know they really love each other, I think that would really tug us in the heart. I think it would be a knife in all of us. And I don't know how we'll feel about that. Particularly, we just watched Wes Lee completely destroy the Rascals, and that felt crazy. This, yeah. Now, what it could do, and it could shock us all, is this could actually be the catalyst for Odyssey Jones turning heel. Him being a monster heel, going after the New Day, saying, you guys didn't think I was good enough to be a part of your crew. I don't need you for this. Because right now he looks almost too good. Like he's too fun loving. Like he's just too happy to be here. Like, dude, you're 400 pounds. You aren't supposed to be that happy to be here. Like, there's got to be a chip on your shoulder somewhere. Not that you have to be angry black man, but you got to be able to you can't beat up people with a smile, sir, and just be happy that you pulled off a move. You're 400 pounds. So maybe this is the catalyst and the swerve to get Odyssey Jones to make the turn and eventually go against the New Day. And that could be the thing that brings Big E back.
Yeah, that for me probably makes a little bit more sense. The whole thing of Xavier leaving, or even signing with Karrion Kross in the Final Testament, that still feels very far-fetched, very far-fetched. How he fits with them and all that kind of just doesn't make sense visually in any aesthetic anyway, in any way at all. But I think, if it's Odyssey Jones that turns on them, they struggle with him, and then a big E has to come in and kind of save them. There was something, I wish I could remember exactly what was said, but there was something on the internet from, I think it was the Fanatics, everything happened at the Fanatics Fest, where it kind of, I think someone either asked the question or someone on the panel that Big E was on alluded to him returning, and he didn't really answer. He just smiled and, kind of laughed off maybe. Whereas in the past, and very recent past, to be honest as well, actually, he's kind of done this thing where he's like, not said no. He's not said no. He's not said yes. But he said, I'm very happy to, to still have the opportunities that I have. I'm not in pain, almost word for word every single time. Whereas this time around, it was just a smile and laugh it off. I don't know if that's telling. For me, it feels as though it is. Or maybe just the optimism in me feels as though that is telling. But yeah, there's a possibility. He's been said he's been in no pain for, at least 6 months now. And he's been training still and whatnot. So there is still that hope of Big E returning. And I think this would be a good way for it to happen. And with someone like Odyssey Jones as a first challenger kind of thing would be phenomenal and show us exactly why and who Big E is straight away. So yeah, I think that's hopefully, I'm hoping that's kind of where it can go. Any type of breakup just wouldn't, I don't know, it would just feel as though everyone else would kind of just, go off into obscurity the second any breakup happens. And you don't really want that to happen at all. But yeah, with all of that said, we haven't broken up. We're still here after an hour and 20 minutes. You have been watching WrstlXtra on the WrestleManiac UK YouTube channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe to see us every single week, and also to see this guy Mex put out all of his reactions to AEW, WWE, everything else in between, as well as all of his interviews and any more exclusives that he managed to find himself getting over the next few months. And also, you can find Mex with the guys Restings. Like and subscribe on their YouTube channel as well. See them every single week. The clips, bro, that you've put out from the last show, Mex is going off.
Oh boy. Oh,
Trying to be
boy.
respectful, but
he is not the biggest fan of the current usage. Let me put it that way. Current usage of the White Six. But go and check out that channel to see makes his take on that whole thing.
I do have an interesting take on that.
It's all very interesting. It's all very interesting.
Yeah. And
you
I
can
know
also
what my
find
issue is. Yeah.
you can also find mix and clips from that show on Instagram, WrestleManiac.uk, as well as X WrestleManiac UK. Find the omnipresent man. Just say his name, he will appear. Or you can find him on All Things Bonafide. You can also find him on his own show, The Faction Show, as well as WWT Live every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. You can also find Gerard doing all of his broadcasting and commentary for All Caribbean Wrestling, Southern Honor Wrestling, Arche Wrestling, IWE, Turnbuckle Championship Wrestling, the Nightmare Factory, and anywhere else this guy appears. Just say his name. Just say his name. It's easy. It's easy. You can find me. I'll make it easy for you in the one place, which is Instagram, Black Wrestling Alliance. Of course, all of the best news and everything else from the Black wrestling community. Guys, we have had a good time. Our time is now over, and we will see you again next week.